Good afternoon and welcome to the Beaufort County Transportation Committee of September 20th, 2023. May we have roll call, please?
Chairman Gordon,
Here.
Vice Chairman Glover,
Here.
Mr. Ford,
Here.
Mr. Backer,
Here.
Mr. Winslow,
Here.
Mr. Perry,
Here.
Mrs. Kozak,
I suspect she'll be here.
okay, Mr. Manning,
Here.
Mr. Daniels,
He was not excused.
okay, and Mr. Hammond.
Thank you. That means we have a quorum. It's customary to go around the room and introduce everybody. Stephanie, you're up.
Stephanie Roski, Little Country Council of Governments.
Rusty Bratz, Beaufort County Engineer.
Sierra Hall, Beaufort County Engineer,
Eric Clausen, Beaufort County Director of Engineering.
Anna Nichols, Public Information Officer.
Welcome. Okay. Will you all please rise with me and have a pledge of allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. It's customary to have a public comment and a public comment to agenda items only. I see nobody. I think is going to talk to that, so we'll go by that. Approval of minutes. Please note that May shouldn't be in there. It's July 19th, 2023. I've had them for a while. Is there any objections? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we'll start off with old business, and Ms. Newman was here to represent the resident construction engineer, but as it turns out, she got stung by a bee and was not able to attend. I believe you have her slides.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Come on up, Jenny.
I'm just looking for a place to sit.
Right there's one right in front of you.
Thank you.
She didn't go over any slides, but she will be absent. But on your PowerPoint, you guys should see the actual projects. Also, the proposed upcoming projects, and in our next meeting, she will provide an update on the projects that SCD is looking
I'll tell you what we'll do. Why don't, if you have her phone number,
at. Okay.
give me her phone number, and what I'll do is I'll contact her, or you can contact her. And what I would ask is to have the slides that she was going to send to you, and then provide the slides to the committee members.
Yes, it should already be on your packet, the last 2 pages of your packet.
It is in the last 2 pages?
Yes.
Yes, that's good. We'll take a stab at this. Active projects on 278. There was a bunch of intersections that we were doing. I think Edisto is about finished up. Road reconstruction, APAC. I don't know what street that is. It's on, oh, that's 278. There was a portion on the island, I think, that they were finishing, and it says it's up for final inspection. Continuing on, the next item is 278. That contract isn't to be done until 2023. APAC's the contractor. 56-60410. Blythe is the contractor, and time adjustment approved asphalt roads. I'm not sure I understand what that's about. Oh, at CMRB is what's going on.
That's easier.
CMRB is the state has committed too much to CMRB and are trying to change CMRB and go to full depth asphalt in place of it. Next slide is US 17 Charleston Highway. That's basically starts at the Colleton County line and comes back for half a mile. It's in pretty bad shape, so I don't see a time when it's supposed to be done. Next is Land's End. We'll go back. 177, 169. I'm not sure where Land's End is. Islands Causeway next is was money that we put in for resurfacing from the CTC. The last item is peak pavement markings. I think that's it. And the last slide is closed out projects that they've completed this year. So we don't have to send it around. Thank you. I'll answer any questions the best I can. Okay, moving on. Rusty, you're up for Dirt Road project update.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Council. Brian has asked me to stand in while he's out. Give you an update. Dirt Road 53, Rainbow Road is under construction at this time. Twickenham and Northview Road are still in design, and we're waiting for permits. If everything goes well, we should start construction in the fall.
You also have going on 3 roads on Defusky that you're graveling.
Dirt Road 54, that's Francis Jones Church Road and School Road.
We need to add that to the,
These roads should start grading process next week. Materials arriving early October with completion by the end of the year.
okay. Questions? John, you've been gone for a while, so
That's what I'm thinking. I can't get my memory. So I lost it. I forget it. I'll get you next time.
Twickenham is coming up.
Yeah, I was thinking about the one over in Scott.
Prince,
It's been out there since I first came on this committee.
what are the 3 roads?
Rainbow Road is under construction,
Right.
Twickenham and Northview.
No, either one of those.
There's another one.
Yeah.
It's in next year's paving. It's in the next year's paving program.
Yeah, that's always, every time I
Well,
mention it, it's always the next year paving. So,
that's the way life is. I'm sorry.
Next- I hope
It's on
next year
the,
will
it's
be
on the
something.
list on next year.
okay, next year, remember that. Next year.
Item C,
Year 6 resurfacing. The resurfacing is complete. Benton Field, I believe we have a update coming later on that one. But yeah, other than that, the resurfacing is complete.
you've done the final punch list and everything on them.
I believe we are finished. I believe we're meeting with the contractor to do a final walk.
Okay. Questions? Next item D.
Year 6 preservation. The chip seal is complete. We're waiting on the contractor to finish the punch list on those. Microsurfacing crack seal is complete, and patching is in progress. We'll start microsurfacing. We'll begin after the patching is complete.
Since Clarence isn't here, I can say this, that this was a technique that we tried from scrub seal that which is basically, this is an improvement over scrub seal. We're doing these on low ADT routes, and basically, we had District 6 came down and took a look at what we've been doing and was quite pleased. And basically, we're doing a chip seal with small aggregate, and then we're coming back over and putting another coat of asphalt over the top of it. And it really has made the roads that we've done it on. Michael Black was really very pleased with it. In fact, he says he wants to start using it more throughout the total district because of how well the project turned out for us. So we tried it, and if you would make a note to Brian for our next meeting, if he would bring in some photos of it, I'd appreciate that.
Photos of the
Chip seal,
chip seal photos?
right?
Yes, sir.
Craig, will it have a longer lifespan than if that supplementary treatment wasn't applied?
Correct. It will have a longer lifespan, and that's really the goal of it.
Yeah.
And particularly, it's on routes with such a low ADT. These are state routes, not our roads.
Yeah.
And these are roads that the state, by directives 64 and 65, the state DOT's directives, these are routes which would never would have been touched. That's
Oh.
why we're touching them. And they were, Michael said very clearly, these are routes would never meet our criteria for work being done on it.
Yeah,
And when I told Secretary Hall about it in April, she was anxious also to hear the results. And I asked Michael to pass that on up the food chain, so to speak, because it was very, very well received. It got all sorts of compliments from them.
'cause it'll be interesting over time to see if it lives up to its extra,
It will be, and that was the idea of
Yeah.
getting it.
'cause I mean, now it looks nice and feels nice, and it'll be interesting to see if it really does save money over time.
Yes.
I do remember, J.D. Washington. Check that out for me.
Washington?
J.D. Washington.
It's in the next, it's in 55.
Okay.
Okay.
I would like for you to keep track of that guy. That guy's about 10 years old.
Okay.
Perhaps you come in a little late, but I was curious what your comments were on, we did Big Estate and a couple of the other networked roads in your district with modified scrub seal. And it was given all sorts of accolades. And you, I think the last time said it was did fix a couple potholes or something, but we got all sorts of accolades for it.
Well, me and Brian talked about some things, and it was just one road that I was wondering why they did Morgan Road that had some potholes in it that needs to be done, and they chip seal just one road that didn't have a lot of houses, nothing on it. It was wondering why that road had priority over Morgan Road.
Who's,
And over some of
who owns it? Don't go digging. We'll
yeah,
talk
you
about
got
it.
me digging right now, and
The answer is because these were state routes that the state would never touch. And if it's in your district, we'll visit it then.
okay. I'm sorry for being late, but you just hit me up
Yeah, I
at the
understand.
last minute there, and
I wasn't trying to throw you a curve.
okay, all right.
Item E,
6-year rejuvenator. The rejuvenator is complete.
okay. I believe that closes everything out. Rusty, is there any other additional questions? Eric, it's up to you now.
Thank you.
Well, Craig, just one thing. I thought the low ADT roads, we were going to obtain cost estimates for the roads that we had selected at one of our last meetings.
That is correct.
And
And Brian isn't here to answer that.
Yeah, I don't know I'm not exactly sure where we're at as far as coming up with those numbers, but we will, in the meantime, we'll report back prior to the next meeting.
Yeah, those are the ones that you individually picked, and I'll make a note to make certain that hits big time the agenda next time. Sorry, Eric, go ahead.
No, you're good, you're good. So this is the SC 170 near-term project as well as the triangle update. So the good news on this one, we held the pre-con with APAC Atlantic. They were the ones who, they were the low bid on that contract. So again, small spot improvements at Okatee Center South, the interchange, as well as Argent, and 462. So I held the pre-con on that one on September 5th. They're going to get started on October 23rd with that project. We have got them working to focus in initially on the intersections of 462 and Argent, just because of the traffic snarls. If you've been through there recently, especially in the morning time, you've seen what that backup looks like, so we want to make sure that we're addressing that right now. So we've also, as a engineering group, looked at the traffic signal timing along the corridor at Argent and 462 and made some tweaks there as well. But this project will complement that, and again, will hopefully provide some much-needed relief to at least the 170 and Argent intersection as far as traffic concerns go.
There was one morning last week, like 7:15 in the morning. It took me 45 minutes to go from Kalawasi Drive to Buckwalter.
And that was what, so typically, and the interesting thing about that is nothing has changed with the signal timing along 170. There's that much more traffic from this school year compared to last spring when it let out. So nothing had been changed along there. We saw the same thing. And so that's when we went through, we've more than doubled the amount of green time that we're giving to 170. It's helped. That was probably after about midweek last week. So it's helped, but it's still congestion issues. The Argent piece of the 170 near-term project is going to make Argent a dual left turn coming off the road. So that means that we can give less time to Argent, give more time back to 170 to help, again, clear that up.
Have you all done any traffic studies on where all this traffic is coming from?
Well, I mean, we have updated traffic volumes as far as where it's coming from. We don't have any like origin destination studies to know, did a lot of people move to Beaufort that are now working in Bluffton? Typically, it takes a couple of weeks to normalize traffic out after school starts. But, you know, we're well into week 3 or 4 after school started and the traffic was still there. So typically people figure their schedules out and modify that, but obviously that wasn't helping. So we had to make some modifications. And again, this project itself will complement all that.
Background update for you. When Jenny was at LoCog and Stephanie she was coming on board with the transition era, they had hired AECom to come in and do the study. The AECom did a complete study and analysis, but in that time span, the 3 or 4 year time span in between, the traffic, that area gets a traffic volume of like 40 to 45,000 ADT at 170 and 278. That's how high it is at that location. And the county is paying for an update to AECom to revise that study as we're sitting here speaking, actually.
Yeah, there are a couple of different studies going on, and this kind of lends itself to the triangle study. Is we are updating, as Chairman said, we're updating the 170 study, which we're going a little bit farther south to the Seagrass Station intersection. Not Tide Watch. Oh goodness, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but it's at Seagrass Station, the one intersection to the south of Oakadee Center South. It's also including 462, but we're looking at potentially relocating 462 in between the A school and John Paul to provide signalized access to both of those schools. So I know John Paul gets congested in the morning. There's some safety concerns that they have with parents coming and going from that site. So relocating 462 in between those two schools provides for that, as well as the county just purchased 100 acres on the other side of 170 for a future law enforcement center. So all that kind of plays together into justifying a potential relocation of 462. Long story short, AECom is studying that as a part of the updated study.
Yeah, the 100 acres is not only just for law enforcement initially, but it could be a new home for administration.
Absolutely. There's a lot of potential there. The other one that I'll add is we did a signal warrant analysis at the intersection of Oldfield and 170. It does warrant the signal. The plans have been completed by AECom and sent up to DOT for comment. The intersection is approved. However, we're trying to figar out the funding because Hardyville has an agreement with the developer of East Argent that he is supposed to be paying for that signal.
Right.
So again, we're working out the logistics of that. So that will all be contained in that updated study.
The point or the question I had was if it was being updated, because one of the key things was the highway was to be treated as a system and not just an improvement here and an improvement there, which usually adds bottlenecks as opposed to solving them. So I was just interested in where things were.
Absolutely.
Because that was a pet project some years ago.
Absolutely.
It actually is the short term of the three type groupings.
Yeah.
This was the short term, not the intermediate and the long term. The intermediate and long term, I think, is going to be tried to fund whenever the county does the 1 cent sales tax for voting next year. So if that gets funded, and it will fund a whole lot of road improvements.
Because I was on that committee too.
Well, and just to lend or to lead into the Triangle project real quick. So we've got AECom looking at that particular piece of the 170 corridor. There are two additional LAT studies that are going on. Well, 3 actually. So we have 170 that's going to be studied from the 46th circle all the way to Boundary Street. So on top of kind of overlapping over the top of that, that's a study that's is occurring or working on getting started right now, as well as 278 from 95 or 17 all the way to Seapine Circle.
Oh.
So again, all that will be studied. You know, again, portions of that have been studied for the Triangle project,
Yeah.
but then there's going to be some overlap with the greater study there as well. So again, still working out the details on the Triangle. Obviously, that's about $200 million project. So realistically, we're going to have sales tax or some other kind of grant funding to be able to fund a large project of that nature. So more to come on that.
And only a portion of it is in Beaufort County.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, and that's a good point. And Hardyville is paying for, Stephanie could talk to this as well. Hardyville is paying for an additional study from 17 or I-95 down to Argent. So they realize and recognize the concerns on that particular piece. So Kimley Horn is providing them a study on that, and they're paying for that out of Hardyville funds.
Good,
So
good.
that's the update on that. And then 278 bridge status. Again, don't know where exactly the town is going to go on their particular piece, but our study, as far as the independent study, is just about wrapped up. We've got the draft. We've reviewed that and sent comments back to CBB, who is the consultant that's working on that for the town and for the county. That will be presented to county council on 9/25, so on Monday is when that will be presented here, and then it will be presented to the town on October 3rd. So again, after that, then we'll make a judgment as to when all the material gets packaged together and gets sent up to FHWA for the next steps.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I noticed, and it kind of surprised me, maybe I was naive and not checking all my notices, but a new traffic signal is going up on Jennings Road and 278.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the background on that, there were some safety studies that had been done on Jenkins Island. They were identified, I believe they were partially funded, and then the whole discussion about the 278 bridge came up. It just made sense at that time, that was several years ago, to incorporate those into that overall 278 corridor bridge project. This was a key piece to that, though, especially as we get into construction on the overall bridge, to create safe access for those coming in and out of Windmill Harbor neighborhood. It's already congested, obviously, in the morning and the PM, and especially then on the Saturdays when you have turnover. So again, ahead of that project, we had sent a letter to DOT. DOT obliged, and they said, yes, go ahead and move forward with that project. So that signal is just about ready to go operational. Should be flashing by sometime next week, and then fully operational the next week.
Has the impact of that signal incorporated into the overall study?
It is, yes. And so Hilton Head has worked on an adaptive signal system on the island.
Right.
This initially is not going to be part of that. We will add that into it at some point. However, there's such low volume coming in and out of Windmill Harbor that we will give plenty of time and do observations out there to make sure that that doesn't snarl things up. So again, it's going on, it's turning on in a couple of weeks. That will give us plenty of time before tourist season hits again next year to be able to address any modifications we need to.
Thank you.
Hilton Head has been behind the scenes on their signal systems. And it wasn't until just recently that they went to a complete adaptive system.
Yeah.
We paid for, along with DOT, paid for taking 278 and making our signals all adaptive. Now they're going to be updated again with a new, more modern system that we paid $400,000 out of about 700,000 out of the CTC funds to help on our adaptive on 278. So to step things up, and we took credit for the state funding on state projects is how it played out.
That system, that adaptive system is working. I've heard people tell me, and I've noticed it myself.
On the island?
On the island,
Yeah, and we are planning on expanding that. As Craig said, we already there was an adaptive system from 170 all the way to Moss Creek. We are planning on updating that to the same system that Hilton Head is running. So again, hopefully that will be a seamless operation all the way through.
Good.
Craig, first?
I'm sorry, Eric, I meant, the signal that you were talking about is going on flashing is going to be turned on. What is that intersection again?
It's at Windmill Harbor. It's
That's what I thought.
Gateway Boulevard, I
Right.
believe. It's C. Heinrich Circle on one side and Gateway on the other side. Yes, sir.
It sounded like you were talking about almost two projects. One that the county is involved in and one that Hilton Head is sort of involved in. And I think you said, and I hope my hearing was correct, that you do not have an idea about which way the town is going to go. Is that what you said?
That's correct. So the town was a part of the independent study that we procured as the county, which was CBB, a firm out of St. Louis, to do the independent review of the work that's been completed thus far on 278. The town was a part of that. They were party to that, agreeable to that. However, I do believe that they are moving forward with an additional independent review. So again, I don't know what that means for the status of the project. However, they've made comments. The town representatives have made comments. They've been present during this entire process. And again, it's been a positive process. So we're hopeful that at the conclusion of this, when that's presented to town council on October 3rd, that we can move forward. But we're not confident on that.
Is there a date that Hilton Head is supposed to give an answer on, let's just say the roadway project through Stony and whatever? Or are they going to continue consultant shopping? I mean, do they have a date that they're going to give an answer as to what's going to happen on that section?
I think the date that we have right now is October 3rd.
Okay.
And I think that, again, we will ask the question following that and following basically the questions that come up to the consultant at that point about potentially moving forward with the Fonzie and sending that off to FHWA.
Is that date going to be consistent with hiring another consultant?
At this time, I don't know the date on hiring their other consultant. So they have, again, they've been a party to our review. They know the deadline and the dates that of the presentation to county council as well as to their council. I don't know at this point on the date on their selection. From my understanding, they are not currently under contract with anyone to provide that additional study.
If the town of Hilton Head says no to the project, and you said something about the county's part, what is the county considering going ahead with should the town say no on after you get across the bridge, so to speak?
I think, that question is out of my pay grade. I think that will, I think
Seems
that
like
will
it's out of
be,
everybody's pay
I think that
grade.
will be discussed, though, at that presentation to county council on, they will be ultimately the ones to decide and make that determination on what steps to move forward with, at that presentation on Monday.
I think, Craig, I think the answer is that a seat right here might be reserved for you next Monday. And I say that not, in all total seriousness, I think as we sit here, as they appoint us, our county council members appoint us, and I think the voice should be made to your county council member about the possibility of proceeding on without Hilton Head if that is your wishes. But that is clearly,
But what is the department's position on going ahead with a nice-looking bridge and not having a 6-lane section on the island? I mean, I'm assuming that the county's position is we're gonna build a new bridge. I mean, does the department agree with that, or are they gonna spend $40 million to replace the project that this all started with?
I don't
Eric,
think we're at
I'm gonna give you a break.
yeah.
I'm sorry, you walked in at the wrong time. I'm gonna dial that up. Come on up, Jared, I'm gonna dial you up for this. That was a smart move, taking the longer walk, give you a chance to think.
I didn't catch the first part, so.
Go ahead, Craig. The question,
If the town, I was asking Eric, and he gave as much information, and information that I'm confident is true, but what if the town says no after they've finished their consultant shopping? What is the county and/or the department going to proceed with? Because I guarantee you, if I was still on the commission and the town said no, I would be very, very reluctant in spending a couple $100 million on building a super bridge and whatever. I'd say we're gonna spend our $40 million and replace the one bridge. So what's the intent of the county and the state as it relates to, what is our project?
Yeah, the project now is the full project. We're moving along with all fronts on that case. Pending the study that we have that's about to be presented, the joint independent study. At that point, we're going to prepare to submit the FONSI. To the Federal Highway for their consideration.
So when you say you're gonna go for the FONSI approval, you're going for the whole from, let's just say, the bridge
Yep,
and the 6-lane section down to the parkway.
that's correct.
And what happens later if the town does not give their permission to do that?
At that point, that'll be in consideration with Federal Highway, so we'll work with Federal Highway with that situation if that arises. And at the end of the day, to what I think you're trying to get to, if all this fails and we can't push forward, DOT is committed to replace the one failing, or not failing, but the one bridge that's in need of replacement.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you had the hammer and the town says no to the 6-lane section, and you had a project that's going to cost a couple $100 million just to replace the bridge and do whatever, would you still go ahead with the project having a 6-lane bridge and 4 lanes on the island? Or would you replace the bridge?
The bridge in itself is a worthwhile project in replacing. However, the issue that would stand is the NEPA document and the logical termini.
Exactly, because they would say building a bridge to quote a dead end is not a logical termini.
That's correct. So even if there's a desire by the state and the county to move forward, there would be an issue regarding the Federal Highway and the FONSI decision or environmental decision because of that logical termini. And if that was not
and with my
available,
experience, I would think that you'd have a difficult time convincing the Federal Highway Administration that that's a logical termini.
that's correct. And if, again, if that logical termini is not, if just replacing the bridge and you don't have a logical termini, that's one. Just replace the bridge by itself changes the purpose and need, which means you restart over the environmental document as well, and then to size it just to the project. So there are ramifications if we get to that. The intent is that we're going to move forward with the submittal to Federal Highway at the conclusion of the study.
If that's your intent, what date would you like to start construction on this project?
Right now, our scheduled date is 2020, the end of 24 or 25. That's pursuing that we can finish the design and finish the right-of-way acquisition and put it out to bid. So, and then the final completion would be the end of 2028. If we have material changes or material issues regarding to the schedule between here and now, that date might be in jeopardy.
Mr. Chairman, I think I've taken enough.
Thank you.
of the other people's.
Mr. Perry, you had a question?
I do. Assuming that you go forward, and this is not try to put you guys on the spot, but assuming that you go forward with the bridge and what's supposed to take place on the island, where do you stand on the money now, original estimate versus your current estimate of how much it's going to cost, given inflation and?
Yeah, the latest estimate we have is at the time of the updated, modified, preferred alternative.
Right.
And it's approximately $330 million, and we have approximately $300 million. So there's a $30 million gap there today, as it stands. Inside of that, though, we still have a 30% design set, so there's a fair amount of contingency into the cost estimate as it stands. So either between the refined design, there may be a reduction or addition, and between now and when we get started, there may be a reduction or addition as far as inflationary measures. So, but that's where we are with our latest cost estimate and our available funding.
So is there a thought, I've heard one thought as to how you're going to raise that delta, and I've heard, you hit in between with the two numbers that I've heard. I heard 20 and I heard 40. So you hit it right on 30. Is there a path forward that you've identified to raise that additional money?
The two identified funding sources that are presently, that would be substantial, worthwhile, would be a subsequent sales tax.
Okay.
Or federal funding opportunities.
So you have, other than the sales tax, you do have some.
Discretionary grant opportunities.
Okay.
And Senator Davis also committed to funding, trying to get funding out of DOT to help with that delta as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks much. Next item H is Bentonfield Road and Development. And my name's underneath it, and I'm bringing it up. And Eric and Rusty, I have talked at length about moving this along. I basically went so far as to say to Brian, we need to get the construction crew that's going to do the concrete work started this week. That was his marching instructions. Again, my concern is I've got a commitment from Thomas for 110 yards of concrete at $200 a yard. And so I'm really concerned about that project not moving and getting it done and taking care of also Palmetto Breeze.
Yeah, right. So any shortfall that we have in the way of concrete, Public Works has agreed to pick up
Correct.
that delta to take care of that. And then I checked with Brian, the latest from Blythe is they have it on their schedule and potentially getting started as early as the first week of October.
Okay.
So that is the game plan for right now. So we've made the funding whole and we have a project timeline. So getting started at the beginning of October.
It's the last of our contracts that we have to close
Yep.
out, and I'm trying to get it closed out.
Yeah, and that one was for everyone, just a little bit tricky in the way that we have Thomas Concrete on that road as well as Palmetto Breeze, so that road has really taken a lot of hits as far as just the amount and the vehicular weight that's on that particular road. So there's areas that are just not good for any kind of just simple overlay. So we're going full depth concrete patching on a lot of it and then asphalt in between.
So that was the reason for it being brought up, and I appreciate the update. Number 6, new business, additional CTC funding. You'll see on your screen, we got, the state legislature stepped up and provided an additional 20 million. The year before, they did 200 million, so we got some additional funds, and the additional funds was roughly $480,000 to us. Chad moved around the percentage on it, and that means that the dollar amount that we're gonna get does not have to be used on federal projects. Now, I have not spoken ever for my district, and I'm gonna be particular to do that at this point in time. We have taken Bluffton Parkway, and Bluffton Parkway was designed, the initial portion of it, was built about 12 years ago, and it starts around Buck Island and gets down around Simmonsville is, I think, the first stretch. And I've heard from Brian talking about the fact that the road was a 20-year design, but at 10 years, we're already hitting more than the traffic the road was designed for. A year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we resurfaced a good portion of Bluffton Parkway. We had a storm come in, and a storm dropped in a very short period of time, more than 2 or 3 inches of rain. And if you've driven to Bluffton Parkway, that original section has a lot of areas that has exposed, it's raveled, and needs attention. Well, the full-time staff has heard my plea and basically to look at it, and they've hired AMT to go and analyze that section, those sections of road to see what can be done to repair. It's the only place on Bluffton Parkway that really has any real issues. And I would like to request of the committee to consider to providing that additional funding for repairing of Bluffton Parkway. So rather than, it's one of the most heavily traveled streets in all of Beaufort County. And it's a mess right now. And with that, we'll try to get the funding out of impact fees to offset the dollar consideration for it. So I'll open that up for consideration. I think the $470,000 would be a good investment for Bluffton Parkway.
You looking for a motion?
Yes.
I so move. Your wording.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Yes, Jenny?
I have a question. What would the alternative project be for spending that money?
Whatever we decided.
So, I mean, there's nothing
Nothing.
lined up. That's why I was wondering if we were gonna decide between
No.
2 or 3. Okay.
Yes, sir?
Is it a priority of the county?
Yes.
And I know the section you're talking about, you're absolutely correct.
It's in very bad condition. The hope is that we don't have to do major mill and fill.
What kind of, well, first of all, does I hope I didn't miss this, but is the $470,000 impacting anything else on our plate?
No.
What kind of time frame are we talking about? And is there going to be, are we approving it, or we're approving to go ahead and take a look at it and see what's needed and how much is it going to cost?
The answer is, they've already approved the contract. In fact, the AMT had a person today looking at Bluffton Parkway to come up with recommendations. I'm simply saying the bridge needs repaired, and I think that we can contribute to $472,000 or $470,000. And whether it's $1 million, Brian had done an estimate that was something to the tune of just under $2 million to make the repairs from the full distance. So we're only contributing a portion of what the total repair cost
And
is.
who's, the county is doing the rest of it?
County's doing the rest.
But will the committee be recognized as providing that money?
We'll see to that.
'Cause that would be nice to have this committee get some nice positive recognition
Absolutely.
in the area.
Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just want to make sure the language is clear on the motion, Sierra, so that we know this, the 47,000 is for repairs.
472,000
472,000 is for repairs
up Bluffton
of
Parkway
Bluffton Parkway.
from Buck Island down to Simmonsville.
Okay.
Or I take that back, it goes down to the traffic roundabout.
Okay.
So it's from Buck Island to the roundabout?
Yes,
That'd be per the county's assessment of the,
correct. The proper repairs.
And when could this get underway?
This year. If not this year, next spring. It's in dire need. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
I have I don't know where, excuse me, I don't know where this is going. I have Wausau Road, Wausau Parkway, excuse me. High tide is, that thing is overflowing. Who do I go to see about getting that elevated?
Wausau is,
That's over there in St. Helena.
we'll talk about it.
Okay,
We'll look it up.
okay.
that might come under sea level rise.
Just real quick on that, so a portion of the 2024 sales tax that we're looking at, there's a portion of that for resiliency. We're also identifying grant funding for resiliency to do a study on all the roads that are overtopping during tide events. So again, we're working on that. That will deliver us or give us the list similar to what you all have with the roads, to be able to itemize what those roads are and prioritize those for that resiliency pot of funding for potential future sales tax as well as grant funding.
Yeah, because that's the only way that these people on this island has a way off of the island.
Absolutely.
You know, so,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, I'm going to wrap together the report on the annual percentages and the treasurer's report. And Mr. Backer, you're up.
Okay. Wanted to do a wrap-up on fiscal year '23. It's closed out. Everything is been accounted for. Sierra and I got together on that. So that year is complete. And just some general highlights, you know, we started the year with a balance of about $4.7 million on hand. Major revenue sources were donor bonus of $434,000, and then the one-time allocation from the $200 million that came from state DOT to the counties. Our portion was 5.7, almost $5.8 million. So for the year, we had total revenues of almost $8.8 million. We paid out on projects just a little over $4 million. So we ended the fiscal year with a balance of about 9.4 million. Sierra and I found a little glitch in the formula, so it should be a little bit higher than that, but it's in the $9 million range of where we ended the year. 2024 is just getting started, and we only really have 1 month of up-to-date data on that, so there's not a whole lot to say about that. There will be another one-time that Craig just talked about, the 470 million or so that comes from the latest gift from the state DOT. I, at this moment, do not have anything to report on the annual percentages, Mr. Chairman.
That would, I would ask for you to put that in the top of your list. That measures, and again, we're required by state statute to spend 33% of our funding on state projects, and the 67% to be spent on county projects. And we were very close to doing that. Now, between now and the next meeting, I'm going to ask the full-time staff to look at possibly moving up our paving schedule in year 7 and 8 with the balance that we have. We're only allowed to maintain a balance of 300% over what the annual is. So if you go to 300% and we get 3.5 million roughly annually, that gets us up to about 10 million. So we're pushing at what we can keep in our pockets legitimately without getting in trouble with DOT. So at our next meeting, we will be discussing maybe moving some projects forward, since we're sitting with a balance of roughly $9 million. We need to be spending more of our money.
We don't want to give any money back.
That's a fact. We don't want to.
We could find a way to spend it.
And they will be coming after us for that if we do.
I know that.
We close out again, public comment number 8 to agenda items only. Is there any public comment?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I don't know whether public comment is, if I may ask a favor of the county. It has to do with 2 intersections, 278 and Sun City Boulevard, and 278 and Coastal Carolina Hospital. Now, I realize that's in Jasper County. And the inordinate amount of green time going to Sun City Boulevard and the local streets serving the hospital and whatever. I'm talking about 5:30 in the morning. And if we could take a look and see what's going on with those 2 intersections and work with our friends from Jasper County on the other one, and you could get back to me and tell me what's going on at 5:30 in the morning. There is significant backups, again, at 5:30, especially at the one at Coastal Carolina Hospital. I mean, the left turn signals feels like they last an inordinate amount of time. And I'm wondering if somebody has worked on these 2 signals. And the one at Sun City Boulevard, again, there's a tremendous amount of green time going to Sun City Boulevard rather than the 278. So I'm asking for a favor, if you could get back to me and let me know what's going on with those 2 intersections, I'd certainly appreciate it.
So noted. Item number 9, Chairman's comments. And my Chairman's comments are going to be limited to only one item today. And this isn't a scolding, but I simply say to you as a reminder, if you are going to be tardy, please call. If you're going to miss a meeting, again, please notify me. That's the way it's written in our transportation plan. If you're going to miss a meeting, it's not a big deal. Just let me know the reason you're going to be missing the meeting. But otherwise, you will be shown as missing without being excused. So I'm just sharing that with everybody. It makes it much easier to count noses and know that I'm going to have a quorum at a meeting. So with those comments, meeting's adjourned.